You're listening to Witch Wednesdays, a semi-weekly podcast source for all things witchcraft in the modern world. Join your host, Steph, on Wednesday mornings to chat about seasons, Sabbats, and all new witchcraft topics to help you make your life more magical. Welcome back to Witch Wednesdays. I'm Steph, and I have a guest here with me today who you have heard from before, but it has been a while, and there are lots of new things to talk about. So I'm going to turn it over so he can introduce himself and let you know where you can find him online.
Hi, Steph. Thanks for having me back on again. It's great to be here. My name is Crow Moon. I am a Wiccan priest in Southern Arizona. And you can find me at crowmoonaz.com or on Instagram at crowmoon5. And that's the number 5, not the word.
Thanks so much for being back today. I know that your first episode was very popular. I know that I have a lot of listeners that like hearing basically the opposite of me and like hearing from somebody that is more in the Wiccan tradition, somebody from the male perspective, and somebody that has been practicing for quite a while. We do differ on those respects. So it was a very interesting chat. And I know that people really enjoyed that because I know they just love getting all of the different perspectives. And you have been you've been really busy, actually, since the last time we chatted.
It's been quite a busy year, but in a very good way. Lots of positive things have come out. I've really been focusing a lot more on teaching online. I've been doing that for several years now, but I've really ramped it up because I've gotten a lot of response from people, particularly those who are either seeking the path or the craft, or those who are just curious about what it is. So I've been tailoring my stuff more to those.
I think that's incredibly helpful because I feel like since starting the podcast, it's just been a continuing resurgence. I know that a lot of witchcraft and interest in Wicca ebbs and flows through the years. I've seen that so many times, but I haven't seen an ebb lately. It's just kind of been flowing.
It has been flowing very steadily, and I'm hearing over and over again the same things that I was thinking and experiencing when I was seeking. And it makes me feel good in a way because that's been my focus on what I have put out there. I wanted to put materials out there for people who were like, wow, this is very interesting to me. Where do I begin? So I'm tailoring my offerings to be what I would have been looking for when it was my time.
I love that. I love when people go back to their roots and figure that out. That's usually my favorite types of teachings and favorite types of books to read are the ones that are like, this didn't exist for me and I want to create it for other people. It's always such a personal insight.
Exactly. And those are the types of books that I read personally as well.
Yeah, they're the best. And I love getting the person's life story in there with that. And I like that you have a unique experience, especially as it relates to the wheel of the year and the area that you live in. Because we just talked, listeners, before this podcast started about just we're completely different. We're both having interesting windy weather here today, but obviously I am in Chicago and you are in Arizona. That is quite a difference just in climate. And I think how we experience the wheel of the year.
Yeah, it can be, in the face of it, it can seem a little bit challenging. The concept of the wheel of the year in Arizona. A lot of people think that we don't have 4 seasons here, and we do. Actually, technically speaking, we have 5. We have the monsoon season as well. The big difference is, of course, it's a lot warmer here most of the year, but we do experience all the same 4 seasons, and you can feel the wheel of the year changing. And I would suggest that it seems to do it more abruptly here. So there's, I guess, more of a call to attention with it.
Would you say that you're finding that that's where a lot of people are starting who are seeking you out when they're looking for information on Wicca? Is that it kind of starts with that Wheel of the Year concept and that nature-based spirituality?
I do very much, especially, yeah, both of those points, especially the nature based. But again, what I'm finding is it mirrors what I was experiencing when I first discovered the craft in Wicca. I was like, wow, okay, this answers a lot of questions for me that I've been having my entire life. And then I discovered the Wheel of the Year, and it completely demystified everything for me at least. And I'm finding out that it's doing that for a lot of other people as well.
Absolutely. Love that idea of living seasonally. And it's so easy for us in our modern society to disconnect completely from nature and never get out there, never experience it. I just was talking about this on Patreon about my like seasonal depression, and one of my patrons very kindly, very gently was like, "Have you been outside lately?" And I was like, "No, friend, no, I have not." Way to hit that nail on the head.
Yes, getting outside is great medicine for just about anything. And yeah, that's one of the things that I teach in my courses and that I do in my personal practice is any small thing is really not a small thing. Like having a patio garden. It is so easy, like you mentioned, in this day and age with grocery stores. We can just run out and get whatever. But with a small garden, I don't ever intend to, and I'm not capable of, being completely self sufficient as far as vegetables that I raise. But there is the benefit of being able to realize, hey, it's planting season. And not only that, what grows right now. And it really has helped me tune in so much. And I think I'm seeing that with others as well.
I have no self-sufficient capabilities whatsoever. I wish I had more of a green thumb, but that has just never been my particular skill set. I love being out there and like interacting with it, but to actually keep things alive has not proven very successful for me,
Well,
unfortunately.
just about anything will grow out here as long as you water it. And yeah, I don't do anything fancy. I stick with hot peppers. I love to plant pole beans or bush beans rather, because they're easy to grow and they give a very fast return on your investment. So they very quickly return your love, and you can see your progress at a much faster pace.
Oh, that's nice having getting the payoff from it kind of quickly.
Yeah, that and herbs. I grow sage and rosemary and everything that I use in my practice of witchcraft is grown in my garden.
I think that something that definitely comes across just in everything that you share, and something that I think is necessary for gardening and tending to plants like that, is you have a very gentle spirit. And I think that that is great in the heart of a teacher, because you are never through like your teachings and just sharing about things, you are so gentle with it. You're never like trying to recruit people. You're never pushy about it that like Wicca is the only way to practice. Like you're so welcoming and gentle and kind. And I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you for the kind words. And you brought up a very good point there as far as recruiting or not recruiting. And that I read that initially when I first started out. I read a book by Scott Cunningham, and one of the lines in there that just always stuck with me that was very poignant. He said, Wicca does not recruit. And coming from my background from the Christian church, I was like, wow, this is refreshing. And then as I went along, I discovered there's no need to recruit.
Yes. That's that's how I feel. And I always I think you pick out maybe Mormons as the ones that are heavy on recruitment, because you see them like go door to door. But a lot of organized religion recruits so heavily, and that never has sat right with me. And it's something that I do, even though I am not Wiccan, that's something I enjoy about Wicca is that who the right people will find it. It will come to you when you need it in your life. It doesn't have to recruit. You'll know if it's for you.
Exactly. And with religion, any denomination of religion, or pretty much anything, if you go out door to door and start talking to people, it's generally not going to work because people, no matter what you have to say, no matter how good it is, people are not going to want to hear it until they want to hear it and they come to it on their own. So that's been kind of one of my hard and fast rules about when I teach online is I am here for people who have already taken that step and said, hey, this is something that interests me. I want to learn more about it. Then I'm one of the resources that's available.
And I think that thought is you're a good resource even if you are not um Wiccan, because modern day witchcraft has so much Wiccan influence. There is just so much of it. The Wheel of the Year concept is, the Wiccan in origin, like the way that the particular eight are set up. Like, yes, they're ancient and they go way further back, but the way that the eight are laid out and put together is a Wiccan concept. And then like so much of witchcraft has adopted that among various other things. So there is a lot in my practice that is Wiccan. So it's not like you can't be helped, and your resources wouldn't be helpful for somebody who's not Wiccan, because I'm not, and I still find everything that you have to say helpful. So I just wanted listeners to know that as well, because it does influence just general witchcraft so much. And really the only thing that's different in my practice is I have absolutely no idea my thoughts on deity at all. I change my mind like monthly, how I feel about that.
And that's okay. That's one of the things I teach in my courses is that we don't have rules. And I find that to be so refreshing. And like in my tradition, the Corvidae Circle, I choose from a variety of influences. So I'm influenced by, for example, Celtic, Germanic, and Native American practices. So it is Wicca, but there's that flexibility to adapt your practice into something that's meaningful to you. And I think that's the most important thing.
It really is. And that's, the whole part of the practice and it being a lifelong kind of journey is that your thoughts and opinions are going to change. So if you're stuck in some rigid rules, you're not able to change in the way that you need to.
That is so true. And it's also true the fact that you're always learning. And in fact, about less than half an hour before we came on, I was outside reading a book and I was like, wow, here's something else that I had never considered. You're always learning. And that's exciting to me.
It's my favorite. I'm constantly learning. I am reading all the time. Every book that I read teaches me something new, no matter how long I've been hosting a podcast, how long I've been talking to people. Every single book I read teaches me something that is completely new, or completely new way to look at a situation. Even if I thought that I knew everything there is to know about that topic, I'm still surprised every day.
That is so true. It is just about an everyday experience and sometimes multiple times a day.
Yes, and it's just about keeping your mind open, because there are some things that I would have said, like when I started the podcast in 2020, that I'm very settled on, and this is how I feel, and this is how I practice. And now 5 years later, I'm like, just kidding. No, I lied. I completely changed my mind on that. It was true then, but it is not true anymore.
I've had those same experiences many times. Yes, and there's a flexibility and adaptability. And I think that's another thing that's quite appealing to a large number of people and why that they're starting to become curious about the craft.
Yeah, and I think that is part of the, you know, religion not being as popular, like organized religion, traditional religions not being as popular, because those rules are not changing, or they change very, very slowly.
Yes, and back when I was involved in the Christian church, there were so many times when I would wonder, well, okay, this is fine, but why do I have to go somewhere to do this every week? Why can't I do this on my own? And that is one thing that I love so much about Wicca and witchcraft is now I can.
Yes, that's how I feel as well. And something that you have really grown in that I want to talk about in since the last time we talked is creating and sharing so much more of your artistic endeavors, your poetry, your music. I love that.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I've always had interests in writing and writing music. And so I did that through a variety of mediums in my past. And then several years ago, I just kind of made that shift into like with music. Um, I used to be a completely different type of musician. And then I made that shift to a more folk influenced, witchcraft influenced music. And I find that I enjoy it just as much. It's still the same creative process. It's still, there's still an excitement there.
And I've been listening to your music that you shared with me. It's really beautiful.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, those piano lessons many, many decades ago are actually paying off now.
Nice to know that they were worth it.
Exactly.
What inspires you, especially in relation to your music that's sort of following along? And I can pick it up in the song that it's going along with the seasons.
Yeah, it's I get inspired by pretty much what's going on with the wheel of the year. So I'll get into a mode of thinking about, let's say, Samhain, for example, and then that sort of vibe starts flowing, and it does the same with my writing and my poetry as well.
And we are heading into the spring and summer seasons. We have Beltane and Litha coming up. So I was going to ask you if there was anything, and I already know the answer to this because I asked you before we started recording because I would never put you on the spot. Is there anything that you would like to share with the listeners regarding Litha in particular?
I would love to. I have a poem I wrote called Litha about the summer solstice.
Excellent.
Sunflowers blooming, yellow and gold. The earth is alive with colors so bold. Candles we light, incense we burn on this day of the sun's return. Summer solstice, bring us your love while the sun shines bright from above. The longest day is here once more. Let all of us now the sun adore. Summer solstice, share your light. Bring to us the sun's great might. On this longest day and shortest night, summer solstice, shine bright.
Oh, that is beautiful. I love the emotion in that. I love the rhyme scheme. It makes me very happy. I think a lot of witches are going to enjoy that. We love a good rhyme in our spells and rituals for some reason. But that absolutely reads as something that you could use for a prayer, a meditation within a spell or ritual on the solstice.
I do for both. It's part of my solstice ritual that I do at home for my Sabbath celebration. And yeah, I was inspired by, um, interestingly enough, the sun, because I jokingly say that it's pretty much summer solstice all year in Arizona. But we do have no, I back to what I said about we do have the four seasons, but the sun is a big influencer out here. And so when that was another one, I took inspiration from, I went out into the garden and the sunflowers were coming up. And this last year, I plant the dwarf sunflowers because they work well in pots. Last year, for some reason, one, it just grew up to like 4 feet. And I just let it go. And it was just absolutely beautiful. So if there was one thing that motivated that poem, I think it was that sunflower.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that and sharing that with the listeners, because I know that they are going to adapt that into their own spell work and really appreciate that when it comes time to celebrate the particular holiday.
Oh, I hope so. And absolutely, anyone's free to use it for whatever they wish.
And do you have outside of the Wheel of the Year a regular sort of meditation, prayer, spirituality practice, things that you do maybe like daily, weekly, or anything like that?
I do. I have both. I have a daily practice, what I call a daily candle, where I light the candle in the morning or in the evening, mostly in the evening because I'm a night person. And that's when I do my readings, I do my meditation, I do my time spent communing with the deities I'm working with at the time. And it's just basically a time of checking out. And I'll go before my altar many times. I'm not saying or doing anything at all. I'm just standing there, breathing in the silence. And I find that to be very therapeutic.
That's an excellent practice. And you highlight something that I think a lot of my guests do about daily practice being something that is very simple. Because I think sometimes, myself included, people get the wrong idea that Wicca is a lot more ritualistic and has just a lot of more moving parts and things that you have to do every day. And that is kind of, when it comes to daily practice, is a misconception that I think a lot of people have about Wicca in particular.
Yes, that's true. And while it is more ritualistic in the actual, like a circle or whatever, your daily practice is yours. It's your daily practice. And I do prefer um, a simplistic approach to that. But I encourage people, and I'm always encouraging myself, uh, that of the importance of a daily practice, because I say all the time, this is not a spectator sport. You need to be involved in it. You need to live it.
And I do think the best way to do that is by including a little something every day, which the month of February in particular was rough on me. And when I like look back at it, I'm like, is that because you didn't do anything related to your witchcraft any of the days? I'm like, maybe, maybe.
It's the absence is telling, isn't it? The silence speaks.
It really is. And you like, I look back and like compare it to January. I'm like, wow, I was like so much more on track with like things outside of witchcraft. It was like I was better at my goals. I was better at taking care of my health and more mindful of my finances. And then February, none of that happened. And I can't imagine why that is. Could it be that I wasn't mindful of anything and I didn't do any sort of daily practice, didn't connect with myself, my higher self, any of that?
Yes, and one of the things that I find so appealing is that there's just multiple opportunities all the time. We talk about the Wheel of the Year. There's 8 Sabbats, but we've also got the lunar observances every month. Pretty much every month, every week, every day, there is an opportunity. Now, whether or not we take it, that's on us, but the opportunities are there.
And it, speaking of the Wheel of the Year, because we did, talk about that, but you actually do have a lot of different teachings that you offer that aren't just based on the Wheel of the Year. So where would you recommend somebody who is listening to this episode and thinking that you're making sense, they like the way you sound, they want to find out more, where would they get started?
Probably, I would recommend, first of all, my courses either walking in Wicca or living a Wiccan lifestyle. And it does go back to how to incorporate the Wheel of the Year into your life, how to uh, be mindful of the importance of a daily practice. Again, it's not a spectator sport, and you'll get more out of it if you're actually living it, or making some kind of observation of at least of what's going on in nature, whether that's by getting out or by eating with the seasons, however you relate to it personally. I find that a lot of people who are seeking are wanting that. They're wanting to make it something more than an occurrence that happens 8 times a year.
Yes, and something that's not just 8 times a year, but like recognizing that it's not just those specific days. It's not that you have 8 singular days a year. The season spreads throughout those all those surrounding days as well.
Yes, here at home, we observe each Sabbath as a season. So, like right now, it's the end of February. We just decorated for Ostara, and those stay up for a month. We always say, my wife and I, amongst ourselves, oh, it's the month of Yule, it's the month of Samhain. We draw that out because it's not just one day. And I really enjoy that because the season itself and the spirit of that season goes on for quite a while.
I enjoy that too, especially Samhain and Yule is my favorite time. So I'm going to enjoy it as long as possible. But I think that's really good for beginners to know as well, because I know there are a lot of fellow perfectionists out there that have all or nothing mindset. And they're like, well, I missed the spring equinox. I didn't do it on the exact day. So therefore, I can't do anything. And I lost it.
Right. And that was one of my challenges too when I first began is I do have that perfectionist mentality. And then I would read things such as, well, if you're under the power of the full moon for 3 days before and 3 days after the actual date. So if you didn't get your crystals out, if you didn't get your water out to charge, all is not lost. And I personally really enjoy that idea, that mentality.
I think there's something really freeing in that for us perfectionists because we do get caught up that like, oh my gosh, the full moon is at the peak at exactly this time and this is when I have to do it. And if I don't do it at 8:11 p.m., all is lost. Like that's not, we can't get bogged down in those tiny little details, because we're just going to be feeling defeated most of the time, and then lose sight of the practice altogether.
Exactly. There is an opportunity for that. Now, I will say I do look up those times because I've just find it interesting. But yeah, I don't schedule a ritual around the exact time. But close is definitely close counts in this.
Yeah, for me too. And it is fun to look up the exact time because it's fun to witness it. So if you have like sight of the full moon and to see it at that exact moment is really kind of beautiful just to be able to witness it, but not necessarily plan your whole life around and feel like you failed if you didn't get your ritual done at exactly that moment.
Oh, it totally is fun. And yeah, I do make note of it. And when I'm doing that, I will ask myself, okay, well, what am I going to be doing at this time? Yes, this actually works out this month. I can be outside at the exact moment. And things like the equinox. Yeah, I can go outside at that exact moment, but I'm not going to see anything. So you feel it.
Yes, that's how I think of it, like kind of like the sunrise. Like you can get the time from the news from your weather app that says like the exact moment of sunrise, but when I go out there for that, like it's actually still really dark and I'm like, is there any sun? I'm not sure that there is. And then for me it feels like sunrise is actually half an hour to an hour later. I'm like, okay, now I get it. So I'm not so tied to what time it is.
Right. And the more you walk with the craft, the more you incorporate it into your daily or weekly existence, the more those changes just call to you naturally. And you spend less and less time actually looking them up, unless you want to know the exact time, like we mentioned.
Yeah, which I appreciate that you're the same, that you use it more as a fun guideline, but not something to live or die by. And I think that I have some listeners that are also perfectionists or also highly like anxious, and have that type of personality that would bug them. So it's good to hear from other perfectionists that say, please don't let it bother you.
Right. I've been that way for far too long. And one of the best gifts you can give to yourself is to slow down on that a little bit.
I do think sometimes that we can get caught up with that with like certain books or social media that they really make it look super perfect, where you have to remember that that's a little bit curated and not something that happens regularly. So if you get to do that super curated, perfectly timed, elaborate ritual once in your life, amazing. But every month, every week, every month, there's no way.
And there's nothing wrong with shooting for that. But yeah, it's just, I think it's the Wicca and witchcraft. One of the big draws for a lot of people, especially me, is that there isn't this perfectionism with it. And I think that's quite appealing.
It is because there are some organized religions that do have a heavy emphasis on perfectionism. So it's nice to get into something that's more nature based and realize that nothing is perfect.
Right. And the best advice I can think is, I hear this over and over, and I say this to people. This is what if they want a standard answer for something, well, this is what is broadly done, but learn it, build on it, and make it yours. You do you.
And, usually I like to wrap up asking for any advice that you have for beginners, but I do think that we have covered that and talked about a lot of different advice in this episode. So instead, I'd kind of like to focus on your thoughts for somebody that has that more artistic side that, like you do, in creating poetry, creating music, and even creating teaching resources, that thinks that they might want to go down a path like that, but are absolutely terrified because I think that's you're putting a part of your soul when you are creating works of art to share with the world like that. And that can be so scary to create those and to put them out there. So do you have any advice on like how you get started, how you got comfortable sharing those things and putting them out in the world for judgment?
Well, it can be scary, but I guess the first advice I would give is to first and foremost just do it. We'll get to sharing it later, but just create it, whatever it is that you're passionate about. Go out and create it, and then if you want to share it, yeah, there's going to be people who are going to like it, and some people who won't care for it so much. You just simply cannot be bothered by that, because when you create it, you're creating it from you and you're creating it for you initially. And that's really, in the end of it, all that matters.
That is, it's such simple advice, but it's so smart.
Well, and I mean, I do enjoy when other people like the things that I put out there, but it's not going to be the ruination of my day if that doesn't happen, because I'm myself am very pleased with what I produce, or else I wouldn't release it. So uh, do what you're passionate about and do it for you, and the rest will follow.
Excellent advice. And goes along with, I talk about this in my book reviews because every month I have books that I loved and books that I hated, whether they were witchcraft related or not. And I always say that it's good, even if I hate a book, because that means somebody is going to like it, because we do not all have the same tastes. And if you are creating something like that evokes such a strong emotion that I'm like, oh my gosh, I hate it. Like, that's actually, you still did a really good job, because I'm talking about it and I'm having a lot of feelings about it. And eventually that book is going to find its way to its perfect audience that might not just be me, because we are all different people. So that's a little bit of advice that could also apply to poetry and to sharing music. Just because it's not somebody else's taste, if it's your taste, you will find your audience, your right people.
Absolutely. Or even if people don't like a particular work of art as a whole, there may be one part of it that will actually resonate with them. And so, again, your mission was accomplished.
Well, thank you so much for being here again and chatting. And it's amazing to see everything that you've accomplished since the last time we talked and just being able to grow in your own practice and then being able to share that with others and grow in your teaching area and all of the art that you are sharing online. It is just really impressive to watch that.
Well, thank you so much for your kind words. And thank you especially for having me back on. It's always a pleasure to be on the show.
It is always great to chat with you. Like I said, I'm talking to somebody that has different religious beliefs or different way to practice. I always learn something new. So I know that the listeners will as well. So I just appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to chat just about your teachings, about the Wheel of the Year, living seasonally. And I think it just chatting about this, because like I said, February is a struggle. At the time we're recording this, it's still in a bit of a struggle. And it's really encouraging me to get out and connect with nature, do the things that I know will like mentally make me feel better. So I think this chat came at a very good time for me.
Well, good. And February is almost over. We just got a few more hours left.
Me
And
too.
yeah, I as well. I need to get out a little more, and I've got that. I've got that planned. Need to go out while the weather is as beautiful as it's going to be. Get out and take a walk in nature, feed the birds. I always like to just go out. One of my favorite things is go out and take a nature walk and simply listen. The spirits of the land, the spirits of our ancestors, they all have something to say if we just slow down and listen.
Excellent words to end on. Thank you so much for being here. And listeners, as always, I am going to have everything that we talked about linked in the show notes. So if you want to check out everything that Crow Moon has to offer, especially the teachings, if you want to check out more music and poetry, everything will be linked below and in the show notes over at witchwednesdays.com so you can find everything easily. That's everything that I have for you this week. I will see you all next week.
Need even more witchcraft in your life? Subscribe to Witch Wednesdays on Patreon and YouTube for all types of exclusive bonus content like spells, recipes, book reviews, and more, or even order personalized tarot readings and spells. Be sure to follow on Instagram at Witch Wednesdays Podcast. And you can find all these links and more at witchwednesdays.com.